getting the first count, the rough draft.
You're helping
All the
out.
James Group people come in.
Yeah, that's good. That's good.
That way I don't have to go back and recount. Yeah. Let's say 30. Okay, I think we might as well get started. You want to say a prayer?
Let's do. Father, thank you for this time. Time means nothing to you, but you give us some while we're here, and you do it. And you only ask us to do one thing, and that's to give it back to you. Every chance that we get, and with as much sincerity as we can possibly muster. And when you do it so that we might tell others about you. And so as we go along in our lesson today, we ask that you would help us to keep that in mind. That our real purpose here is to love the way you do. And so as we go about that, we first must relinquish all those worries and those fears and those difficulties that we may have so that we might freely give. And we ask that you would do that with us and for us now. Thank you for each and every one here. And we love you, Father. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. So I hear last week you actually got your rubber bands, correct? Yeah, I forgot to put mine back on and take a shower this morning. Does everybody know what we're talking about with the rubber bands? Did anybody use their rubber band this past week? Is anybody experiencing pain because of your rubber band? I had one person this morning say they're wearing themselves out.
We also handed out some cards last week. Do you remember that? Is anyone in here that did not get one? Okay. Let me explain to you what this is, and then I'll let you have the clipboard. What is that? Are you waving? You didn't? Oh, okay. I thought you were just glad to see me. I'm glad to see you anyway. This is what we're going to do. We're going to use this card, and we're going to use it, you understand, to distribute food for God. Up until now, what we have done is we have allowed that to be a little bit too random. And when I say that, what I mean is that you weren't involved. We want to get you involved, and on the card, there's a place for your name and a code number. The code number is simply your initials and the date, without hyphens or dots or slashes. So when you hand out the card, if it doesn't come back with your name on it, then it's counterfeit, and we're not going to honor it. And the list is here so that we know everyone who has a card. So this is premeditated loving, if you will. And we'd like very much for you to look for those who you could check on. So we have on the back side, we have a place for their names and email addresses, and a place for them to actually go to our website, Webb Chapel's website, and find out who they are taking food from. And then there's phone numbers. The first phone number on here is of James Group Ministries. The only reason we've done that is because this is going to turn into an everyday deal, we hope, that someone shows up here every day that we can help. And so we are here every day. And so, and Vivian is grateful for this. We didn't put her phone number on here because she's here a couple of days a week. So that's what these are for. I'm going to put this out there so that you guys can have this again. And if you haven't gotten one, please take one per person. I'd like very much for you to remember, however, okay, that this is purposed so that you might meet someone who might need some help. We're not looking for the guy standing on the corner with a cardboard sign. We're looking for the single mom who probably doesn't have gas to get to work and back, and maybe if you provided her some food, she could manage that. You get that? Eventually, all people at Webb Chapel will have these, including our youth group. Do the kids know who the poor kids are in their class? Yeah, how cool would it be to send one home? Just a card from another kid in school where they could go get food. Get it? Okay, I'm going to send this around. Please write your name so that I can read it if you don't mind. Thank you. Okay.
I'm going to talk about, again, patience. We're going to deal with this for probably another week, perhaps two.
That's okay.
I was going to call you up
We turn his
a few weeks
microphone
ago
off.
about that room,
Oh, yeah.
and you got in contact.
Thank you. All right. Part of the reason we're talking about patience for a while is what we're going to be talking about is basically a process of kind of understanding what we're going to be dealing with as we go through this study of what love is. As we go through reading through 1 Corinthians 13, that description of love is this. We're starting with the very first one on the list, and we're going to do some exploration of it, of kind of what we might be dealing with as we're going through it. Now, one of the reasons why we wanted, whether you're making notes of it or whether you're just putting check marks down or whether you're actually popping yourself with a rubber band, we really wanted you to look at your impatience. Because the opposite of patience is impatience, right? So if you are being aware of how much you're impatient, then you start to gain some realizations. Does anybody have any realizations that they gained that they would be willing to share? You do? May I? Huh?
I'm impatient when I'm driving.
She's impatient with her driving. She's the only one here.
Everybody else.
Everybody else, right. She's the only one. Yeah, I think we probably all deal with that.
Little things.
Little things?
I get impatient with, not earth-shattering something,
Right.
but just little things that bug me.
Little things that bug you. She bugs you?
She's always accused me of being impatient, but I didn't realize till I really started thinking about it, just how much of my life is controlled by my impatience.
Right. Okay. Anybody else?
Hey, Dave.
Yes, sir.
You saw that this morning, right, when he couldn't wait for the coffee? Right, he went ahead.
He pulled the coffee pot and stuck the cup under. Okay, for me, going through this process, the thing that impacted me probably the most was similar to what Ron dealt with, which was I was shocked at how often I was in that place. When I really started looking at how often I'm reacting to a variety of situations with impatience, it was shocking. And I had the same realization Ron did, which was, how much of my life am I given to this? And then you start looking back and you go, how much of my life did I throw away just with impatience? Now, impatience is a little bit, in my mind, different than the rest of this list we're going to be talking about. And I'll explain what I mean. But first of all, let's talk about what makes you impatient. Traffic, we heard that, the little things.
I should say my expectations. You know, if people are not
Yep.
conforming to my expectations, like my children, especially when they were little, I really struggled with if they weren't ready when I said, until I came to the realization that they were more important than any place I had to be or anything I had to do, you know, but I had to let go of my expectations.
Right. So expectations of some sort or another, right? So, you know, impatience. Is it traffic? Is it your spouse? Is it your kids? Is it your parents? You know, we can go down this list. You know, we can be impatient with, I'm a chronically late person. I have not been able to correct this in my life. As much as I try, I am chronically late. It doesn't matter how early I get up in the morning. I seem to find a way to be late. I know some of you get really annoyed with me. So are you impatient with people maybe who are late? Are you impatient with people who, are you impatient with waiting in line? Does that really bug you? Okay. How about people who cut in line? Yeah. Got in the wrong line. Got in the wrong line. That's right. So does being late make you impatient, or does people who are late make you impatient? Is it your boss? Is it your employee? We could go down this list, and probably every one of those things at some point or another makes you impatient, right? We can be impatient with circumstances. We can be impatient with people. We can be impatient with ourselves. How much does that actually weigh in? I actually noticed that nobody really said, I really get bothered by me. But how often do we get impatient with ourselves because we're just not doing it right? And how often can we get impatient with God? Because He hasn't answered things when we want, the way we want. Basically, we become impatient when things aren't what we want, when we want, the way we want. And I think most often, it's as she said, it's the little things that actually are the things that get to us. So is it each little thing? Or maybe are we bringing something to the table that matches up against that little thing and makes that little thing have so much more meaning? Okay, you remember in the very beginning, we talked about the garbage that we carry around with us, right? The big bags of stuff that we carry into every situation, okay? That's what we're talking about with impatience, is we come in and we're sitting in traffic and we're so mad about traffic. Okay, is it traffic that we're mad about? Or is it like me, realizing that I left late yet again and knowing it's my fault and I'm in traffic? So I'm actually not really mad at the traffic. I'm mad at me because I have let myself get in this situation yet again. And I'm in my head going, Dave, you did it again. Or is it because you know that when you get to work, someone might be upset? And it's maybe not even your boss, it's that guy who you walk by who goes, it doesn't matter, right? But that still has this weight. You're going, oh, I got to walk by Jimmy. Jimmy's going to look at his watch, right? So it's all this stuff. It's actually not traffic. It's all the stuff around it. So we bring so much in, and I think Carol hit the nail on the head when she said it's expectations. Impatience is essentially unmet expectations. We want things to be a certain way, and they are not that way. And so we get impatient. We are constantly analyzing where we are in the world. We're constantly analyzing what we mean in this world. And by doing so, what we're actually doing is we're analyzing or giving credence to what the world means to us. So if we're constantly analyzing our place in this world and how things are affecting us, we are basically saying that we are giving those things the power to affect us. Does that make sense? So, maybe our impatience is a measure, or our patience is a measuring rod for how attached we are to this world. That's what stood out to me as I was studying patience, as I looked at it and, okay, patience is really not an active thing. I can't hand you patience. I can't necessarily show you patience. Patience is more what I don't do. It's a measure of all those things to me in that list that follow in 1 Corinthians. Am I patient? I'm certainly not going to be kind if I'm not being patient, right? There's probably going to be a lot of anger if I'm impatient. So that patience or impatience becomes this sort of thing that we can look at and we can say, how much are we embedded in this world and have decided that this world has control over us?
I don't look at my watch when you walk in. That's being patient.
So, in other words, we're constantly defining ourselves by what we think we mean to the world and therefore what the world means to us. So we are defining ourselves by this world. And that definition of ourselves by this world is evidenced in our impatience. Our expectations of others and ourselves is what can keep us in this place of being nervous wrecks, constantly unsatisfied with ourselves and the world around us. Does that describe you as well as it describes me?
Nah,
No.
I guess not.
No. I see slight head nods. That sense of panic. I described it to somebody once as it's a never-ending sense of impending doom. You get just this thing that, okay, what's going to happen next? And it's just, and it ends up becoming a snowball that overwhelms you. So one of the things that impatience also implies is a lack of quiet, right? In order to be impatient, you have this dialogue going on in your head because you're bringing all that baggage with you, right? All the stuff that you're bringing into that moment when you're impatient is the opposite of quiet because you're going like I'm, right, in your head. So there is a lack of quietness, and that's one of the things that we've talked about that can stand in the way of actually having a relationship with God, right? Is if we're never quiet, we don't hear what He has to say to us.
How many of you think it's up to Him to interrupt you? If He really wants to talk to me, He'll interrupt me. Because there's a conversation going on in your head all the time, right? You're thinking about somewhere in this direction, you're planning, you're doing something, you're either griping or you're impatient. You wish somebody changed the way they act because if they would, the world would be great. If the rest of the world just straightened up, my life would be okay, conversations. And so if God really wants to get in touch with you, He can interrupt all that, shut you up, and He can make His point. And when He's ready for that, He will. How many of you live that way? And then pray for Him to talk to you.
He gets our attention in some really scary ways. That's a really scary way to expect Him to get our attention.
Okay, so
We're
let's...
overlooking all the subtle, quiet ways, and we're waiting for the skillet in the head.
Yeah, you think we're missing the little quiet voice? How could you hear a quiet voice if yours is screaming all the time, right?
He's patient,
Oh.
waiting for us to be quiet.
Oh, He's already mastered it. He's waiting on us too. How brilliant.
So my 6-year-old Vivian is quite a bundle of energy. And there's sometimes that she's so busy running both her body and her mouth at the same time that she actually doesn't hear me trying to say something to her. She's going, I'm going, Vivian. Then I go, Vivian! And, oh, what? And I think that's kind of what we're talking about, right?
I think so. Has God gotten your attention before? And was it extreme to you at the time?
Many times.
Many times? Gosh, that's the earmark of a hard-headed child. Not, I didn't mean to.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know you have. And one of the things to understand that we don't realize is how hard-headed we are.
Yeah.
And how uncooperative we can be. and how preoccupied we get and how quiet is just disturbing. Any of you clean house with the TV on? Or something plugged into your head? Gosh, people are plugging stuff in their head now and doing things. Do you understand? And so, consequently, we really don't know how to be quiet. Who taught us that? Where did we get to? Who taught us impatience? Who taught us stay busy all the time? Who taught us be in control? Don't let anything up to chance. Where did that come from? How did we get that way? Do we need deprogramming? Do you think? Yeah. So somebody give me a way God did it. Deprogram somebody. I mean, if we're going to ask him to do it his way, in the midst of our hard-headedness and our crazy attachment, okay, who would you pick to say, oh, well, God straightened him out, he got his attention, and he kept it the rest of his life?
Might use illness to do that.
Illness?
Shone a bright light in his face.
Say it again.
Shone a bright light in his face.
Yeah.
Oh,
Make
a
you go
bright
blind.
light, yeah. Huh? She said Paul. Paul, did God get Paul's attention? Yeah, did he maintain it? Yeah, what did it take? Was Paul heavily distracted? Was he preoccupied with the world and his worldly place and all that other kind of stuff? And what did God end up having to do to get his attention and keep it? Just blind him, that's all, no big deal.
And put him in a place away from the chatter that he was used to hearing.
I'm telling you, I mean, let's just blind the guy and throw him in a dark room, you understand? And then we'll bring a Christian along to tell him some things. And then he realizes, oh my, now I'm one of those people I was hunting and killing. That's extreme. Does it have to be that way? Do you suppose it has to be like that?
If we continue being stubborn, yes.
Who's the stubborn one?
Us?
Yeah, but aren't we like wondering why he is sometimes?
That's only because we want our way.
We're impatient. Does that sound like an evil plan to you? Do you suppose there's somebody standing in a dark corner with their arms folded, looks like that right there? Not that he's, I didn't mean that. I didn't mean that way. But you know, just like, and he even smiled a little bit like, yeah, I got this. I got them disturbed because God won't contact them. And I did it, you understand, by just keeping them busy. Busy and hurry. Is that a problem for us? Yeah.
You can go back to the beginning, Tower of Babel. They were impatient because they didn't have contact that they wanted with God, so they decided.
We look pretty good like
We
this.
do, yeah. They decided to build their own tower, right? Okay, we're going to get there. That was impatience. So even in a desire sometimes to get to God, we may actually miss what he's saying to us because we get so busy trying to do stuff. Nobody's too busy around here, right? Church work doesn't take up too much of your time, right? I'll get in trouble for saying that. But even that, you can become so busy with the things that you're trying to do that you actually miss the time. The Pharisees, how distracted were they? By trying to follow all the rules and then making sure that everybody else followed the rules. You think that wasn't distraction and impatience? Can you imagine how a Pharisee actually felt about himself? Knowing what the rules were and knowing that he wasn't actually meeting the rules.
Do you know churches have SWAT teams? They do. They're the people who are just dedicated to making sure you do it right, and when you don't, they're going to let you know. They're going to walk around stating the obvious like you don't already know that you're not doing it well. Do you need that? Does that help you? Is that helpful?
SWAT teams.
Yeah. It's not helpful, is it? What do you really need?
Love.
Lots of love, right? Lovingly deprogrammed. Okay, the first thing you're going to have to do is you're going to have to slow this Mustang down. How good at that are you? I remember a long time ago, it was a long time ago, I was driving a truck still I wasn't doing James Group, it hadn't even started yet. Had a load of trees on an 18-wheeler, and I am easing through some traffic, you understand? And I see Ron Dunn sitting in his car coming at me this way in an equally slow amount of traffic. And he's busy inside his car. He didn't even see me, you know? And I know who he is, you understand? And he's never going to see me because I'm not in my normal environment. I'm sitting in an 18-wheeler, and he's not even going to look and see it in there. I get right next to him, and I just go, "Hi, Ron!" What do you think he did? He hit the ceiling. I'm not kidding you. He went up so fast, he hit the ceiling. I said, "What are you doing?" And then we went on. Do you need that sometimes? I don't know that he needed that, but I had a blast. I thought it was awesome. I got to tell you, I've asked Dan Camp for his work on adventures in Christian living, and he's not allowed to get in the attic anymore. And I've just been as patient as I know how to be with this guy, you know. He's just not going to give it to me. Because his circumstances are such that it's like he can't find it, you know. And even Sue said, "I'll try to find it, I'll try to find it." Well, I've been waiting like for 3 weeks, you know, and she hasn't said, "I found it, I found it, I found it." And I thought, well, you know what? They just don't like me anymore. You ever do that? They just don't like me anymore. And Mary Lou Green shows up, and she's going through her deceased husband's files and finds a complete set and says, "Here." God says, "Shut up." Shut up, okay? They don't have it. Mary Lou has it, and I'm going to see to it that you get it. Is that a God thing? Is it dangerous for me to give him credit for that? Huh? I wasn't supposed to get it for. I was concentrating. Those people don't like me. If they don't give me that, they don't like me anymore. Okay? I've placed, look how much meaning I may have placed, you understand, on something that's totally out of their control, you understand? It's certainly not in mine, because that's what's making me irritable. And the fact that God's not acting here, I mean, come on, you know? Is this where you kill me or make me stronger? I didn't even pray about that. I didn't. I didn't even ask him to pray about it. I just grumbled. Did he hear my grumbling? Yeah, and he thumped me on the back of the head, sort of, kind of, like, "Here, if that's what you need, I'll find you one." Is it okay if I give him credit for that? Yeah. It probably is okay for me to also know that he loves me enough to understand, to watch me suffer for a little while so that the lesson gets learned. Do you think I learned something right there? Yeah. I think I could ask, I could go up to those two people right there, I could go to the camps and say, "Do you still love me?" What would you say? Yeah, they do. They do. But see, look at how our mind works. You might think you're the only one. You're not.
So I don't know how many of you know, but I actually started out my professional life as an artist. So doing drawing and painting, stuff like that. So I went to college and majored in that. One of the things that they teach you about drawing when you get there is to forget what you know. Because you kind of learn on your own, kind of learn from your friends, kind of learn through different things. And what they do in the very first art class is they say, "Forget that." And you learn things like there are no lines in nature. There are only edges. Okay? That affects the way you draw. So what they basically, one of the things they said was, okay, if I'm going to draw this cup, most of us would start to draw this cup, and what we would do is we would draw what we think we know about this cup. How many cups like this have you seen in your life? From how many different angles? Sitting in how many different places? And if you sat down to draw this cup, and you're thinking, I'm going to draw this cup, your brain immediately starts referencing this giant list of all the cups that you have seen and what they look like in the places that you've seen them, and you start drawing what's in here. What comes out on the paper is not what's actually sitting on the table. What comes out on paper is what you have in your head. So what they teach you in the very first drawing class is forget what you think you know. Don't draw what you think, draw what you see. So to some extent, what you have to learn to do is separate yourself from the way you've been doing things. You have to separate yourself from the things that you think you know. You have to separate yourself from the fact that you're sitting here looking at this and you're seeing this world in 3D around this cup. But when you really break it down to what you're going to put on paper, you're drawing something flat on paper, right? So you're interpreting this somehow. And so to do that, what you have to do is you have to forget that this is a 3D object with multiple sides that you can pour liquid in and that you can see from the top. You have to forget that, and you have to break it down to shapes and colors. And when you do that, you become detached from it. You're no longer bringing in all that is cup. You're not referencing all the cups that you've looked at in the past. You are looking at this simply for what it is and not for what your brain is telling you that it is. So you learn basically to disconnect and look at these things objectively, and then you're able to do things that you couldn't do before. I will tell you, after learning this, I would start creating drawings, and I thought I was good. And then I would start creating drawings, and I'd be like, I didn't know I could do this. I had no idea. And it was because someone retaught me how to think about it, and I was able to completely change the way I drew. That's what we're talking about. We're actually talking about learning to look at the world this way. And we're learning to, we're saying, don't bring in everything you know. But look at each situation for what it is. In that moment, as you're looking at it, and it's simply circumstances and people. It's not your past, it's not what you think the future is. It's simply that moment, that time. And then if you're able to look at things objectively, you're able to go, what does this really mean? Does it mean anything? So what if Jimmy looks at his watch when I walk in? Does Jimmy have any impact on my life?
He's hating you. Really? Do you really think that assumption really is worth putting that much weight on? Do you really know what people are thinking? Do you really? I had someone ask me one time if I knew what the look on my wife's face meant. And she was sitting in there. And I thought I did. I did. And that woman said, tell me what you think she's thinking. And I did. And then she asked Carol, is that what you were thinking? She said, no, I was thinking this. And it's like, gosh, we make assumptions all the time, especially if something has happened to us a certain way in our past. We think it's always going to be that way. Can we go there and stay there and get locked up in there? Are we not free then? Are we not damaged then? Are we less than what he sent here then? Yeah.
And patience is our measure of what this world means to us. And the more I study this, the more 1 Peter starts to make sense to me. 1 Peter 1:17, he talks about living our lives here as strangers. 1 Peter 2:11 and 12 talks about living our lives here as alien and strangers in this world. So when you're looking at the amount of impatience that you have, do you start to see maybe how living here as an alien or a stranger might be? So if we're able to look at this object for what it is, this life that we're living for what it is, which is a life on earth with people like us who are flawed, and then you're able to look at that for what it is and you're able to say, this isn't the goal. This isn't what makes my life matter. This isn't what makes me who I am. So one of the things as we go through the rubber band trick, I know it's a pain, and if you haven't tried it yet, I really do ask you to start. It's pretty eye-opening, okay? What doing the rubber band does is start to make you aware of how much this world means to you and how much it's affecting you minute by minute by minute, and how much of our life we're giving away to it. The next thing, then, that I would ask you to add is each moment that you're impatient, make that a moment to involve God. So when we start talking about learning to become God aware and not how to just put Him in certain places at certain times, what we can do is begin to involve Him in the little things. And wouldn't our impatience be a lot of little things to involve Him in? What we're talking about is basically trying to learn how to develop God vision. We can't have God vision. But you know what I mean when I say he starts to teach us through His Word how to look at things in a different way. When He's saying look at it as aliens and strangers, He's saying don't look at it the way everybody else is looking at it. Look at it the way that I'm looking at it as much as you can.
Do y'all have a new normal yet? They're trying to sell you one. New normal. Have you heard that? It used to be postmodern thinking. Now it's new normal. Oh, well, let's just flip it into whatever we need it to be so that we can feel normal. Gosh, who are you going to listen to? Really? Is somebody always in your ear? And somebody's always trying to change normal. Somebody's always trying to figure out what's best, you understand, for you. How do you like that? I don't know about you, but I'm getting tired of it. And the reason I'm getting tired of it is because I've been listening to Him. The more I listen to Him, the more I get tired of somebody trying to sell me an alternative way of thinking and living for the purpose, do you understand, of their pleasure. Are you tired of it yet? Hope so. Because we're trying to get you in a place where you can actually be led by the Spirit, not by a human. Do you realize how much you don't need human leadership if you're being led by the Spirit? You only need fellowship then. And you have to decide. I did. I had to decide who I was going to listen to. And so at some point, you understand, the experimenting has to start. So, if you don't mind, I'm going to read you something. It only takes a little while. It's called, the name of the book is called The Precious Present. Once there was a boy who listened to an old man and thus began to learn about the precious present. It is a present because it is a gift, the contented man explained. And it is called the precious present because it is the best present of all. When the boy asked why, the old man explained, it is the best present a person can receive because anyone who receives such a gift is happy forever. Wow, the little boy exclaimed. I hope someone gives me the precious present. Maybe I'll get it for Christmas. The boy ran off to play. The old man smiled. He liked to watch the little boy play. He saw the smile on the youngster's face and heard him laughing as he swung from a nearby tree. The boy was happy. and it was a joy to see. The old man also liked to watch the boy work. He even rose early on Saturday mornings to watch the little laborer across the street mow the lawn. The boy actually whistled while he worked. The little child was happy no matter what he was doing. It was indeed a joy to behold. When he thought about what the old man had said, the boy thought he understood. He knew about presents, like the bicycle he got for his birthday and the gifts he found under the tree for on Christmas morning. But as the boy thought more about it, he knew the joy of toys never lasts forever. The boy began to feel uneasy, and then he wondered, is the precious present? What could be so good, so much better than any other present, that it is always called the precious present? What would possibly make me happy forever? He found it difficult to even imagine the answer, and so he returned to ask the old man, is the precious present a magical ring? One that might put it on a finger or makes my wishes all come true? No, he was told. As the boy grew older, he continued to wonder. He went to the old man. Is the precious present a flying carpet? He inquired. One that I could get on and go any place that I liked? No, the man said quietly. Now that the boy was becoming a young man, he felt a bit foolish for asking, but he was uncomfortable. He began to see that he was not achieving what he wanted. Is the precious present, he slowly ventured, a sunken treasure? Perhaps rare gold, coins, buried by pirates long ago. No, young man, the old man told him, it is not. The young man thought for a moment, then he became annoyed. You told me, the young man said, that anyone who receives such a present would be happy forever. I never got such a gift as a child. I'm afraid you don't understand, the old man responded. The young man was confused, but determined. He resolved to find the precious present himself. And so he packed his bags. He left where he was and went elsewhere to look for the precious present. After many frustrating years, the man grew tired of looking for the precious present. He had read all the latest books, and he had looked in the Wall Street Journal. He had looked in the mirror and into the faces of other people. He had wanted so much to find the precious present, he had gone to extraordinary lengths. He had looked for it at the mountaintops and the cold, dark caves. He had searched for it in dense jungles and underneath the sea. But it was all to no avail. His stressful search had exhausted him. Occasionally, he even became ill, but he did not know why. The man returned wearily to the old man's side. The old man was happy to see him. They often smiled and occasionally laughed out loud together. The young man liked to be with the old man. He felt happy in his presence. He guessed that this was because the old man felt happy with himself. It wasn't that the old man's life was so trouble-free. He didn't appear to have a lot of money. He seemed to be alone most of the time. In fact, there was no apparent reason why he was so much happier and healthier than most people. But happy he was, and so were those who spent time with him. Why does it feel so good to be with him? The young man wondered. Why? He left wondering. After many years, the once young man returned to inquire further. He was now very unhappy and often ill. He needed to talk with the old man, but the old man had grown very, very old, and all too soon he spoke no more. The wise voice could no longer be heard. The man was alone. At first, he was saddened by the loss of his old friend, and then he became frightened, very frightened. He was afraid that he would never learn how to be happy until he finally accepted what had always been true. He was the only one who could find his own happiness. The unhappy man recalled what the old man had told him so many years ago. But as hard as he tried, he could not figure it out. He tried to understand what he had heard. The precious present has nothing to do with wishing. When you have the precious present, you will be perfectly content to be where you are. The richness of the precious present comes from its own source. The precious present is not something that someone gives to you. It is something you give yourself. The unhappy man was now tired of looking for the precious present. He had grown so tired of trying that he simply stopped trying. And then it happened. He didn't know why it happened or when it happened. It just happened. He realized that the precious present was just that, the present, not the past, not the future, but the present now. He realized that the present moment is always precious, not because it is absolutely flawless, which is often is not, but because it is absolutely everything it is meant to be at that moment. In an instant, the man was happy. He realized that he was in the precious present. He raised both hands triumphantly into the cool, fresh air. He was joyous for one moment. Then just as quickly as he had discovered it, he let the joy of the precious present evaporate. He slowly lowered his hands and touched his forehead and frowned. The man was unhappy once again. Why? He asked himself. Didn't I see the obvious long ago? Why have I missed so many precious moments? Why had it taken me so long to live in the present? As the man remembered his fruitless travels around the world in his search for the precious present, he knew how much happiness he had lost. In the past, he had sensed what he had thought was imperfect in too many moments. He had not experienced what each special time and place had to offer. He had missed a great deal and felt sad. The man continued to berate himself, and then he saw what he was doing. He observed that he was trapped by his guilt about his past. When he became aware of his unhappiness and of his being in the past, he returned to the precious moment that he was actually in, and he was happy. Try to stay where you belong. We'll see you next week.